what if, like, everything you thought about starting a business was wrong? Seriously, what if failure wasn't, the end? What if it was actually the fuel?
Yeah, that's a powerful idea. And it's not just catchy, right? It's really embedded in the stuff we're looking at today.
Exactly. Have you ever felt like you're completely starting over? Like job loss, maybe a business didn't pan out, or just, bam, a financial hit?
Oh, definitely. Or maybe you have this great idea, this dream, but then you look at your bank account and it's like, how? How do I start with basically zero?
Right. It feels huge, overwhelming, maybe even a bit isolating.
Totally. But here's the thing. Our sources really highlight it is possible. You can recover, you can rebuild, you can even launch something pretty significant from that starting point.
Yeah, like think about that story of the founder testing her idea with just Instagram pre-orders while still working full-time.
And sold 50 products in 60 days before spending anything on inventory. That's amazing.
Or the developer building a, $120,000 a year ebook business just from documenting free software.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And these people didn't start with massive budgets or, perfectly polished plans. Not at all.
So in this deep dive, we've pulled together insights from, all sorts of places. Financial recovery guides, entrepreneurial research, real stories. And we're going to pull out the absolute key stuff, like cut through the noise, give you a shortcut to the core strategies, the mindset shifts.
And maybe flag some common mistakes too. Things to watch out for.
Definitely. You'll walk away with hopefully practical first steps you can take right now. Insights into that resilient mindset and how to avoid the pitfalls that trip so many people up.
Okay, sounds good. Where do we start?
Right. So if you're facing that setback or starting from scratch, the very first thing the sources hammer home is, it's practical, maybe a little tough.
Okay.
You have to calculate the cost of recovery.
The numbers. Get brutally honest.
Exactly. What do you actually owe? What are your absolute bare minimum living expenses each month? It's uncomfortable, sure.
But ignoring it just means you're flying blind, right?
Right.
Any plan is just wishful thinking then.
Precisely. Understanding those numbers is the absolute foundation, non-negotiable.
And the emergency fund thing comes in here too, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Crucial. Aiming for 3-6 months of expenses, ideally. Even if you've been wiped out, starting even a tiny one is a priority.
Every dollar is like a vote for stability.
Yeah.
I like that framing.
Yeah. Now, cutting expenses is part of it, obviously, but accelerating recovery isn't just about cutting back.
It's about bringing more in too. Income.
Exactly. Finding more income and maybe finding it fast.
Okay, so how? What do the sources suggest there?
This is where the gig economy often comes up. Platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, if you have skills you can offer online.
Right, or things like Uber, TaskRabbit, for more immediate sort of hands-on work.
Yeah. Even renting out a spare room is mentioned, though obviously you need to check your lease, local rules, all that.
Sure. But the point is, actively looking for ways to boost that income, even when things feel really tight.
Right. So once you've got a clear picture, the numbers, potential income, then you need that realistic action plan.
And realistic means actually writing it down.
That's what they stress. Write it down. It becomes your personal roadmap.
Okay, like specific steps.
Yeah, concrete examples like, I will reduce my grocery bill by 20% using meal planning, or I will apply for 5 part-time jobs this week.
Or list the spare room by Friday. Or mapping out exactly how you'll tackle debt.
Exactly. It turns vague hope into actual manageable steps.
Okay, speaking of debt, that can feel like a huge weight, crushing sometimes.
Totally. The sources acknowledge that overwhelm,
Yeah.
and they usually offer 2 main strategies.
The snowball and the avalanche, right?
You got it. Debt snowball.
Yeah.
Pay off the smallest debts first. You get those quick wins, build momentum.
Psychologically satisfying. Keeps you going.
Or the debt avalanche. Target the highest interest rate debts first. Saves you more money over time, mathematically.
Right, so which one's better?
Well, that's the key insight. It's less about which is universally better and more about which one keeps you motivated.
Okay. Because consistency is what really matters in the end, sticking with it.
Exactly. So you're sorting the numbers, looking for income, planning expenses, tackling debt. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
And it connects both financial recovery and starting a business. It's mindset.
Yes. The mental game. Huge.
Totally. This is where the battle is often won or lost. Research on entrepreneurs talks about things like internal locus of control.
Right. Believing you influence outcomes, you're not just like drifting.
Yeah. And entrepreneurial self-efficacy, basically. Believing in your own ability to figure things out, to make a business work.
And these aren't just fancied terms, right? The source is linked in directly to actually bouncing back, spotting opportunities.
Exactly. Opportunities others might miss when they're feeling defeated.
It reminds me a bit of that Atomic Habits idea about identity. Well, the goal isn't just doing things like applying for jobs or writing code. It's about becoming the kind of person who does those things.
Right. Every action, every small choice is like a vote for that new identity. The financially savvy person, the resilient entrepreneur.
Yeah. And some sources even suggest practical things like positive affirmations.
Simple statements you repeat, like, I've got this, I am taking control, just to actively manage that inner voice, especially when it gets tough.
Keep your spirits up, reinforce that identity shift. Makes sense.
Another huge part of this mindset is learning from the experience.
But not dwelling on the failure, right?
Yeah.
More like reflecting.
Exactly. What actually led to this situation? What could I do differently going forward?
So if lack of savings was a big factor, then building that emergency fund becomes like priority number one for the future.
Or if overspending was the issue, then learning disciplined budgeting isn't a punishment, it's a skill, a vital one.
Turning the setback into a lesson. Building future resilience.
And underneath all of that is taking accountability. Not blame, necessarily, especially if things were unfair, but owning your current situation.
Because that empowers you to actually fix it, puts the control back in your hands.
Right. And you don't have to figure it all out alone. The value of support groups comes up too.
Connecting with others, online or maybe local groups.
Yeah. Just hearing from people who've been through similar things can give you practical ideas, but also just strength, knowing you're not the only one.
That's really important. Okay, so that's the recovery side. How does this connect to starting a business with, like, no money?
Well, that same resilience, that same intentional mindset is absolutely critical there too. The sources are really clear on that.
But is it actually possible? Starting a business with nothing? Or is that just, a pipe dream?
It is definitely not a pipe dream. Sources like Shopify are pretty definitive. Yes, it's possible. You use budget-friendly options.
Okay, like what kind of options? What businesses work for this?
They highlight things like dropshipping, you don't hold inventory yourself. Print on demand is another big one, great for testing ideas cheaply.
Service-based businesses too, right?
Yeah.
Leveraging skills you already have.
Absolutely. Or digital products, create it once, sell it over and over. Even handcrafted goods, if you manage the costs carefully.
And there are real examples of this working, like that clothing brand you mentioned.
Yeah. Used print on demand just to see if the idea had legs. $0 invested operationally at the start.
Or Remy Martin's Natural Girl Wigs, testing with Instagram pre-orders while still working her job.
Selling 50 units in 60 days. Then she invested $1,000 she'd earned elsewhere. It's deliberate, it's low risk.
So even with minimal cash, the basic steps still matter, like a business plan.
A simple one, yeah. Your roadmap, finding your community, choosing a name, a basic brand, getting a website up, which can be done super cheap now.
And then the crucial part, validate the idea before you go big.
Yes, validate first. Then once you've got proof it works, you figure out funding for growth, often just by reinvesting what you earn.
Okay, so validating cheaply, quickly.
Yeah.
How do you do that beyond pre-orders?
This is where the lean startup idea of the minimum viable product, the MVP, comes in big time.
Right, the MVP. It's not about perfection on day one.
Not at all. It's the absolute simplest version of your product or service that lets you test your main assumptions. Do people actually want this? Will they pay for it? Get real data.
It's about progress to learn the truth, wasn't that the phrase? Even if the first numbers are, like, terrible.
Exactly. You're learning what customers really want instead of maybe spending months building something nobody buys, which is the ultimate waste.
Totally. It's different from that old waterfall method, plan everything, build it all, then launch and hope.
Yeah. Lean startup is iterative. Build a little, measure, learn from the data, and be ready to change course pivot if the data tells you to.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the painful part maybe, the common mistakes.
Yes. Let's dive into those. The sources, especially places like Business News Daily and some really honest Reddit threads, are full of warnings. Avoiding these can save so much grief.
All right, hit me. What's a big one?
Business News Daily points out just underestimating the sheer demands. It takes way more time, money, and emotional energy than people think.
Yeah, the glorified image versus the reality. It can really strain relationships too, if you're not careful.
Definitely. And another big one, over-promising and under-delivering just to chase revenue.
Oof. Yeah. Better to say I'm booked for a month and look busy than take on too much and fail to deliver.
Exactly. Then the Reddit threads got really specific on customer stuff. This one stood out. Bending your own rules or going way overboard for customers you have a bad feeling about.
Oh, yeah. Does that often backfire?
Apparently, almost always. Also, just not saying no often enough. Spreading yourself too thin.
And this one seems counterintuitive, but not charging enough.
Right. The idea is lower prices can sometimes attract more difficult, demanding clients who don't really value your time or expertise.
Huh. And giving special deals doesn't always breed loyalty either, maybe. Less appreciation.
That's what they suggested. On the money side, a huge mistake flagged was spending big just because you had one great month.
Ah, yeah. Feast or famine. Those good months can be followed by lean ones. Gotta smooth it out.
And not properly separating funds for profit, for savings, for taxes, that causes chaos later.
Oh, and this one. Not paying yourself early enough.
Yes. Working for free on paper for years leads to burnout. You have to value your own contribution.
And caring too much about appearances. Fancy office before clients.
That was mentioned too. Spending on looking good with no actual business yet. Also, finding that balance between working in the business, the day-to-day tasks, and working on it. Strategy, growth.
That's a constant struggle. What about people? Hiring mistakes, partners.
Yep. Hiring the wrong people or getting into partnerships you don't really need.
Oh.
Be cautious with vendors too. Avoid long-term contracts early on.
Pay monthly if you can. Keep flexibility.
Exactly. And ad spend, another big caution area. Pouring money into ads, maybe like Yelp.
Better to focus on local organic stuff first. Word of mouth, building a community.
Often, yes. The $100 Startup book found most of the successful businesses they profiled built their customer base without paid ads initially.
Interesting. Okay, any other surprising mistakes?
This one from Reddit was unexpected. Talking too much about your business details too early, even to family.
Really? Why is that?
Potential for competitors popping up, or just complications and unsolicited advice you don't need when you're just trying to get things off the ground. Sometimes building quietly is better.
Wow, okay. And finally, not setting up clear policies and procedures early on leads to chaos later.
You got it. Creates endless headaches down the line.
So avoiding all these pitfalls,
Yeah.
it sounds like it requires developing some specific skills.
Absolutely. It's not just about having a good idea. What skills do the sources say are essential for entrepreneurs today?
Well, the Emeritus source lists a few core ones. Business management skills are huge. That covers leadership, thinking strategically, budgeting, just understanding the business side.
Right. Not just the craft or the service.
Exactly. Communication and listening skills, vital for building trust, handling conflicts, really understanding what customers need.
Non-negotiable, really.
Then there's time management and organizational skills.
Yeah.
Prioritizing, delegating effectively, managing stress, trying to find some work-life balance.
Yeah, the delegation point is interesting. How do you manage that when you're starting with nothing?
Well, the Jenna Rainey source frames it as delegate to elevate. Even early on, identify your highest value tasks, the things only you can do that really drive revenue or build the core product.
Like sales calls, creating the actual service, maybe writing for your email list.
Exactly. And then figure out how to offload the lower impact stuff, admin tasks, maybe scheduling.
Yeah.
Even if it means hiring a virtual assistant for just a few hours a week when you can finally afford it. Your time is your most valuable resource.
Okay, delegate to elevate. I like that. What else in time management?
That source also mentions the 80-20 rule. Find the 20% of your tasks that generate 80% of the results and relentlessly prioritize those.
Focus on what moves the needle. Makes sense.
And setting boundaries. Clear work hours, personal time using to-do lists, blocking out time specifically for planning or creative work. Systems are key.
And consistency, right. Sticking with it builds momentum.
Absolutely. Consistency in focusing on those high-impact tasks and setting clear goals. It's how you make steady progress.
It sounds like the opposite of just reacting to whatever comes up. More intentional.
Very intentional. And these skills management, communication, time management, also branding, marketing, networking, they aren't things you're just born with.
Right. The sources stress they can be learned, developed through practice.
Yeah, it ties back to that atomic habits thing again. Every time you practice delegating or prioritize effectively, you're casting a vote for becoming that effective entrepreneur. Repetition builds the skill and the identity.
Okay, so you're developing skills, taking action. How do you know if it's actually working? How do you track progress effectively?
Tracking, yes. But the Lean Startup source has a big warning here. Beware of vanity metrics.
Vanity metrics, what are those?
Numbers that look good on paper, maybe for a press release, but don't actually tell you if your business is healthy or sustainable.
Like total website visitors, maybe?
Yeah,
Or number of social media followers.
could be. If they don't connect to actual business results, like sales or active users or whatever, is key for your model.
So what should you track instead?
They advocate for something called innovation accounting. It's all about measuring validated learning.
Validated learning, meaning are we learning if our core ideas about the business are actually true?
Exactly. You start with a baseline, maybe from your MVP, and you track metrics directly tied to your business model assumptions. Conversion rates, customer retention, things like that.
Even if the starting numbers are really low.
Especially then. The goal isn't to have impressive stats right away. It's to learn the truth about what works and what doesn't, so you can adapt. Celebrate the learning, even if the numbers aren't huge yet.
Like that graphic facilitator in the $100 startup, she'd just tracked her bookings on index cards.
Perfect example. Simple, but directly tied to her earning money. It told her if her business model was actually viable. That's what matters.
And throughout all this, seeing stories of people who did start with little or nothing must be incredibly motivating.
Oh, absolutely. The $100 startup is packed with them. The music teacher with the software making $360 K, the accidental photographer getting $5K per wedding.
People moving to Spain and running businesses online.
Yeah.
That Evernote ebook author hitting over $120K.
Yeah, and the key is, these weren't usually overnight successes. They were built through effort, learning, adapting to what customers wanted.
And reinvesting, right. The Shopify source mentioned that. A business started small doesn't have to stay small. Reinvesting earnings fuels growth.
Exactly. You build deliberately.
Okay, wow. That's a lot to cover. So maybe let's try and summarize the absolute core takeaways from this deep dive.
Good idea. Let's boil it down.
Okay, first, whether it's financial recovery or starting a business, get brutally honest with the numbers. Calculate costs, understand your situation, make that emergency fund a priority.
Right. Second, don't just cut back, actively seek income opportunities. And manage debt strategically. Pick the method, snowball or avalanche, that keeps you motivated. Consistency is key.
Third, and maybe the biggest, mindset is everything. Build that resilient, accountable identity. Use affirmations if they help, and crucially, learn from setbacks without getting stuck in them.
Fourth, you don't need tons of money or a perfect plan to begin. Start small, use budget-friendly models like drop shipping or services, and validate your ideas fast and cheap with things like pre-orders or MVPs.
Fifth, learn from others' mistakes, especially around customer issues, managing money wisely, and knowing when and how to ask for help or delegate. Avoid those common pitfalls.
Sixth, actively develop those key entrepreneurial skills: management, communication, time management. Use strategies like delegation, the 80-20 rule. Remember, practice builds the skill and the identity.
And seventh, measure what actually matters for your business. That validated learning. Use simple tracking. Focus on real metrics, not just vanity numbers. Be willing to learn the truth and pivot if you need to.
That covers a lot of ground. It really emphasizes learning and adapting.
Yeah, which leads to a final thought. If starting something new is all about navigating uncertainty and validated learning is so critical, how might embracing the possibility that you might be wrong about some things and being truly ready to pivot based on what you learn, how might that actually be your biggest strength when you're starting from zero?
That's a good question to ponder. Letting go of needing to be right from the start.
So for you listening, what stood out most from this? Was it a specific step, a mindset shift, maybe one of those mistakes that felt a bit too familiar?
Yeah, what challenge feels most relevant for where you are right now? We'd genuinely love to hear about it. Maybe drop a comment if you're watching or listening somewhere. You can do that.
Definitely. We've covered a lot today about building from zero. Next time, we'll be diving into, well, you'll have to tune in to find out.